In the grimy industrial heart of Birmingham, England, a place where the sky was permanently grey and the air smelled like despair and molten steel, four working-class lads decided to make music that sounded exactly like their surroundings. This is the story of Black Sabbath. The band that took the blues, poured motor oil on it, lit it on fire, and accidentally created heavy metal. It all began when Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward formed a blues band called Polka Toke Blues Band, because nothing screams rock and roll like a name that sounds like a discount carpet store. They soon changed it to Earth and realized another band already had that name, so they looked across the street, saw a movie theater playing a horror film called Black Sabbath, and thought, why not name ourselves after something terrifying that really fucking sucks? Tony Iommi lost the tips of his fingers in a factory accident before Black Sabbath started. Instead of quitting, he made homemade thimbles out of melted plastic bottles and tuned his guitar down to ease the pain, inventing the heavy metal sound in the process. Now we're gonna dive into their first album, Black Sabbath, that was released in 1970. It was released on Friday the 13th. Of course it was. Critics hated it. Fans loved it. Honestly, with songs like NIB, I can't believe critics hated it. Which, it really fucking sucks, honestly. The opening track, Black Sabbath, basically invented doom metal in one go. It was slow, dark, terrifying, like a horror movie you could headbang to. Now, next album up is Paranoid, released the same year. It was recorded in just a few days, similarly to their first album where they had to record it in 2 days live, essentially. The title track Paranoid was written in 20 minutes as filler, and it became their biggest hit. Now, one thing not everyone here will know about Paranoid is that whenever they made it, it was originally going to be called War Pigs. Now, the record label told them to change that shit, Warner Records, because they didn't like the political meaning behind War Pigs. So they got stuck with the album cover of a guy in a pig costume. Like, that has something to do with being paranoid. Fuck it, though. It's iconic, and I'm sure Sabbath has no regrets at this point. But imagine writing your most famous song because you had 10 minutes left in the studio. It's fucking crazy. Other tracks like War Pigs turned the band into anti-war prophets with riffs so heavy they could bend steel. Ozzy didn't know what Iron Man was about until years later. He just sang what Geezer wrote and hoped for the best. Now we're going to dive into a few albums in one. This would be Master of Reality in 71, Volume 4 in 72, and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath in 73. Now, by now, Sabbath were gods of gloom. They turned lower, played slower, and inhaled more substances than a chemistry lab. I'm not kidding. During this era, they were in the cocaine, Quaaludes, fucking every drug you can think of. During Volume 4, the band spent so much on cocaine, they thanked their dealer in the liner notes, The Great Coke. And another thing about this album is it has a song called Snowblind. Think about it. Snowblind. Yeah, fucking cokeheads. Master of Reality gave us Sweet Leaf, an ode to marijuana that made every stoner, including Cheech and Chong, feel spiritually validated. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath showed the band experimenting with keyboards and orchestration, proving they could be both heavy and fancy. Awesome thing about this era is Master of Reality gave us Children of the Grave, one of my favorite Sabbath songs ever. So, yeah, I'm not really too into Volume 4. It has Changes on it, which is their first ballad, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is forgettable, to say the least. Next, we're going to be talking about their downward spiral. This would be Sabotage, Technical Ecstasy, and Never Say Die. You like all these albums? Me neither. By this point, the band was fighting more than they were playing. Ozzy was drifting away, Tony was trying to keep things together, and Geezer was probably writing lyrics about the apocalypse again. During Sabotage, the band was literally being sued while recording, hence the album title, and Never Say Die was the final straw. Ozzy left or was pushed out, depending on who you ask, and now the Prince of Darkness was gone, but Sabbath wasn't done yet. Now we're going to enter the Dio era. So in walks Ronnie James Dio, a man with a voice powerful enough to shatter glass and possibly demons. I don't know, at this point, everyone only knows him from Rainbow. So their albums that they did with Dio were Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. And the sound got sharper, faster, and more epic. Dio brought mythological lyrics, dragons, and the devil horns hand gesture, which, fun fact, he borrowed from his Italian grandmother to ward off evil. Heaven and Hell is often considered one of the greatest metal albums ever made, and it saved Black Sabbath from extinction. I wish I was kidding. Now we're going to enter into what I call the confusing era. So Dio left, and they released the album Born Again with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, a bizarre mix that sounded like a monster truck accident. Then in 86, they would go on to do Seventh Star, technically a Tony Iommi solo album, but the label slapped Black Sabbath on it anyways. And then The Eternal Idol, Headless Cross, and Tear followed with new singles, every single album of these. Fun fact, by 1990, Black Sabbath had changed singers more often than Spinal Tap changed drummers. Now, we're going to go into what I believe is the most important era of this entire video, is the reunion. In the late 90s, nostalgia hit hard, and so did Sabbath's riffs. The original lineup reunited for tours and the Reunion Live album. Then in 2013, they released 13, their first studio album with Ozzy in 35 years. And with Rick Rubin as producer, you guys know how much I love Rick Rubin. It went straight to #1 in multiple countries. Fun fact, Bill Ward didn't participate due to contract disputes, but the spirit of the original Sabbath was still there. Dark, heavy, and gloriously apocalyptic. Especially with songs like God Is Dead. Man, that one fucking hits hard. Now, we're going to enter into the final era, which unfortunately is the end. Now, in 2025, after nearly 50 years of riffs, chaos, and devil horns, Black Sabbath played their final show in Birmingham, right where it all began with other big-name bands like Metallica, Pantera, and Lamb of God. I like to think of this as one final send-off to the Prince of Darkness, as he would pass away just 2 weeks later. Fun fact, their final song was Paranoid, the same one they wrote in 20 minutes. From the smoky pubs of Birmingham to the biggest stages on Earth, Black Sabbath didn't just create heavy metal, they defined it. They were loud, messy, and occasionally on fire, but they proved that darkness could be beautiful and that a single riff could change music forever. And that, guys, is how 4 blokes from Birmingham accidentally summoned the devil and called it rock and roll. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this. Catch you guys in the next one.